Okay, good morning, PT on Ice crew. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. I will be your host today. I'm Dr. Sarah Herron from Seattle, Washington. I'm lead faculty for the out-of-network division, and today we're going to be talking on Fitness Athlete Friday because part of my out-of-network experience is in the fitness athlete field. I'm going to wait for a couple people to join us here. We just started the April cohort for the out-of-network step-by-step course. I'm just going to adjust my camera here. And it sold out really, really fast, but there is a July cohort, so you can still register for that if you guys are interested in that class. Quick little announcements. The sampler was awesome. It was my first experience at the sampler, and I'm so excited. We're going to be hosting that in Seattle next year, so I will be sure to be there. You are welcome to go ahead and register now on the website. It will be in April, same weekend, that first weekend of April, and it's going to stay small, so make sure that you sign up if you're really interested in doing that. So again, today is Fitness Athlete Friday, but I want to reiterate something that we talked about in the sampler, which is that in the out-of-network space, we need clinical excellence. And that's part of like the entire philosophy of this company, of course, is clinical excellence. But what I mean by this is you need to know your shit. And especially when it comes to a niche. If you are wanting to practice in the CrossFit space, we really need to know what we're talking about and be clear on what that sport entails, what the tendencies are of our athletes, and where we can improve them and help them get a little bit better in their sport, and potentially steer them clear of injury or get them back after some injury. So before we get started, I want to be clear that there's no movement is bad movement. Okay, and we can appreciate that, and we can especially appreciate that fitness and exercise is way more important than technical detail, right? So I don't want to get too hung up on that, but I do want to say that as a CrossFit coach and as a PT who takes money from people and is valued because of my expertise in the CrossFit space, I want to share with you some of the things that work for me with these athletes. So about a month ago, we talked about anterior shoulder pain. We talked about how centering that shoulder back in the socket is really important for these folks, and how oftentimes they get anterior pain, but the problem isn't necessarily like their bicep tendon. They don't need to be stretching that structure. In fact, they probably need to be learning how to turn their subscap on, center that ball into the socket, stabilize in that position. So go back and look at that if that is of interest to you, or you think you have a patient that might settle into that category. Those are folks who are going to have pain in these kind of anterior positions. So dipping, maybe push-ups, bench, catching a muscle up, things like that. Today I want to talk about the importance of pushing versus pulling in CrossFit. So I was trained this way as a student in the early 2000s, and I still see this in physical therapy. I see it in the personal training space, and I see it in medicine, that doctors, trainers, and PTs, maybe massage therapists, maybe chiropractors, are often encouraging patients to always pack their shoulder blades down and in. So pulling those shoulder blades down and in is supposed to be like the safe position of the shoulder. But that isn't really the case for CrossFit. And in fact, we do so much pulling in CrossFit, whether that's on the rig, pull-ups, any kind of toe to bar where, yes, we're pushing on the rig, but we are retracting our shoulder blades down and in. A deadlift, I'm pulling that bar into me, retracting, maybe rowing, bent over rows. So much stuff is pulling, cleans, right? We are shrugging, but we are still trying to stay back. I think it's really important that we recognize that we also need to be pushing. So we need to be pushing, thinking about like our gymnastics body stuff. So we need to be in hollow. We need to be pressing into handstands. We need to press that bar overhead to stabilize it. Something like an overhead squat. If I'm holding that bar and I'm packed down, that's not going to be the best, most stable position. And also it can cause some shoulder impingement. So I want to speak to today a little bit of that importance and about how we can educate our patients on that. So first and foremost, I think that a lot of patients will come in and they are being cued to do that. And I'm not sure where that comes from. I think it's just kind of old school thinking, but we need to encourage our patients that when we're reaching overhead, that shoulder blade needs to spread. That serratus anterior is going to help with upward rotation, right? We're going to get some low trap, some upper trap. We need that to happen in order to be in a stable position. Regardless of position, we are talking about muscle balance here. So if all we're doing is pulling down and in, that's going to be problematic for our patients. Often what's happening with those patients is they're getting into a really flat back situation. So I'm going to actually take my sweater off. Almost all of my CrossFit patients have a really flat thoracic spine. So, and I do too from ballet. So growing up, I was a ballerina and I was taught to really pull down and in. It was like squeezing my shoulder blades was part of our aesthetic, part of what we were expected to do. And part of the sport of dance is to be really like long through your neck. So I'm very addicted to pulling down and in. But what that does for me is it causes some subacromial impingement here. Okay, when I'm working with an athlete that's having that kind of shoulder pain, I need to figure out, can they truly like reach up? Can they get up out of their shoulder blades? And in doing that, are they extending through their thoracic spine, or can they produce a little bit of spinal flexion? So we know that the serratus anterior doesn't fire as well if we don't have thoracic extension. Okay, so we need to make sure that they understand that. And at the sampler this weekend, I talked a lot about Bowles close. So this is relevant for the upper body too. If our pelvis is a bowl and our thorax, our rib cage is an upside down bowl, those things need to be stacked together. If as I press overhead, I am extending, I'm losing a lot of my stability through my trunk. I may end up with back pain, but I can end up with a lot of shoulder pain because I'm just not actually using my shoulder blade to push, I'm using my back extension. So I'm gonna show you guys a couple exercises that I like to start people on. Go back about a month ago to that podcast where I talked about anterior shoulder pain because that can be really useful. But also, as we're getting them back to things, we do want them to be pressing overhead, and I'm going to share some important stuff on that. So it's really hard to get somebody to help me at 5:30 in the morning here. So I'm going to do my best to sort of maneuver. I've been running around the clinic for the last 20 minutes trying to figure out the best space for lighting, but this is what we have. So I am going to angle my computer down and show you guys how I like to encourage closing bowls and using like the floor essentially to help with that feedback. So give me just a moment here. There's that one. Here's Insta. Okay. That is good. Okay, so on the foam roller, you can see me. Hopefully that doesn't fall over. All right. So on the foam roller, I'm going to put my tailbone and my head all the way down. So I'm going to lie all the way down, actually. And what I want to think about here is bringing my, kind of personally, my bra line to the foam roller. So you want to think about that sort of sternum zone here. I'm going to think about bringing that down without tucking my butt under, okay? So I'm creating some tension by controlling here. Then with a shoulder patient, what we can do is teach them how to go overhead with maintaining that stability. So I have them use a dowel. This is just a dowel from Fred Meyer. You can use PVC pipe. I'm going to have them go ribs down, break the bar. So I'm spinning. I'm like going into external rotation. Thumbs are angling behind me. Elbow pits are going behind me, just as if that bar was over my head. Now I'm going to punch up, activating all of those pressors, right? And then going overhead. And what will often happen is your patient will go like this. So that's very clear to them then. Oh, I'm breaking that position. I don't know how to get overhead. So again, pressing and up overhead. And you might spend some time with them on that. You can weight it. I wouldn't use a barbell personally. I'll give them like a 10-pound plate. It's harder because now they're more narrow. But that idea of keeping stability here as we reach and press overhead, it's really, really useful. That's going to be useful for gymnastic stuff. That's going to be useful for barbell stuff. Many times what we're feeling pain with is in closed chain positions. So that might not feel good, although they can kind of shimmy their hands out wider to help. But what we can do once they understand that ribs down position is we can work on pressing in essentially an open chain position. It's important to realize that most CrossFitters are going to be doing closed chain stuff. So we need to get them back to that. I like single arm kneeling pressing as my open chain stability exercise. So let's see here. Okay, so in kneeling, I'm going to start with a relaxed kettlebell on my forearm here. So I'm gripping it through the handle, that's just resting. And I'm going to think about ribs down, but I'm not like crunching up in my traps. I'm literally using my abs to create some pressure there. And then I'm imagining that I'm pushing my elbow forward to get that serratus to kick on. So you could put your hand here on a patient and help them with that. Then I'm going to press straight up. What's nice about this position or this single arm stuff is that I can change my angle if I'm having pain, okay? With a barbell, I can't do that. With the floor, I can't do that. With a rig, I can't do that. So this is a really good place to start. Okay, so single arm pressing. What I really like to get them to once they've figured out how to control the ribs and how to press with their serratus is I like to do behind the neck pressing. So I'll start them with a dowel and then we'll go to barbell. So I'm gonna angle again. If anyone wants to move to Seattle and be my volunteer, let me know. 5:30 a.m. Oh, shit. Sorry, Instagram. Lost you there. Okay. Okay, so I think my lighting's okay. I'm gonna bring this bar over my shoulders on my traps. Hope you guys can see me okay. And I'm going to not tuck my butt under necessarily, though we do want a tight squeezed booty in CrossFit, but I'm not gonna get my stability only from there. I'm also gonna think about shifting ribs back. So I'm tight, I am breaking the bar. And the way that I do that, again, is I'm shoving my elbows underneath that bar. That's creating that external rotation. So that's really important. Elbows under the bar, ribs down, and now I'm gonna press up. It should kind of flip my hair like that. And then from here, I'm going to reach even further. I don't know if you guys can see me. So ribs down, elbows forward, pressing. And then from here, this is lazy, this is active. Okay, appreciate that. So elbows forward, ribs down, squeeze my butt, flip my hair, lazy, active. Now, there's a difference between shrugging with my trap and then pressing from the base of my shoulder blade. So I really like to clear that up for patients. Once they're set with that, we can use a barbell. My little space. Okay, so again, you can change it if they want to be in clean grip or snatch grip. Usually people will have a preference for pain and or comfort. All right, so ribs down, elbows forward, pressing, pressing, okay? And hopefully they can start to do that all together. Once they get that down, that's when we can start working on things like an overhead squat. But they need to understand the difference between pushing and packing. I don't like this. I want them to press. Same goes for if I'm upside down in a handstand. I need to press my body up out of that floor. Let me get rid of my bar. Okay, Sorry for the goofiness this morning. It's just really hard to do this on my own. But the takeaway today is that I want you to think about a couple things. So if we're going to be treating in the CrossFit space, I do think it's important that we're doing CrossFit. We need to be actively involved in that community. But we also need to understand their sport pretty well, like better than other people, okay? And I think that that is missed sometimes, that idea of pressing up versus pulling down. I think that we maybe have been overtrained to pull down, and a lot of athletes think that that's normal. But I think if we can teach them pressing up, they're gonna get a lot of relief from that. So thinking about that idea of excellence. Okay, secondly, ribs down. This is your base, right? So a stable thorax is what we're gonna build on top of. And then thirdly, pushing versus pulling, okay? So I hope that helps. I have a lot of different other exercises that I can share with you guys, but because of lighting and space and available people to help me, I wasn't able to include those. I really like a wall slide, so I'm gonna link a video for that because I think that's a really good one. That's sort of like pseudo open chain. I'm using both arms, but because I can manipulate the position of the band, I think that one's helpful. That also is nice because I can cue them to push their spine into the band, which gives them a little bit of that thoracic stability feedback. Okay, that's all I have for today. So I hope that's helpful. Again, let's think about being the best in our community at offering what these fitness athletes need. And a lot of times that comes with challenging a paradigm. But that's what our sport does. It challenges a lot of paradigms, and that's cool. That's a really good thing. We need that in this world. All right, guys, have a great Friday. Thanks for having me, and have a good weekend. Talk soon. All right, end.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.